Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
Hey, Kiernan.
Hello, Ryan. All right. So when last we left Ryan's travels, Ryan had just returned to Mexico City from Puerto Vallarta. And I believe that you're now in the trip you were anticipating as of the last episode. Are you currently recording from Quito?
Yes, I'm in Quito, Ecuador, as we speak. That's why maybe I'm breathing heavy, because this is the second tallest capital in the world after.
I don't know, Ryan. Is it Peru?
No, it's La Paz, Bolivia. Actually.
All right.
Yeah. So I haven't been there, but. Boy, you realize when you're walking up and down like these massive Quito hills that oof. You gotta be in extra good shape.
I mean, you don't get that in Lima in Peru, but you do get it in Cusco, that up and down. And I do know La Paz has become a real destination. So you probably have to work out for 6 months just to be able to climb all the stairs.
Yeah, no, I would probably have had more trouble in Quito had I not been in Mexico City for so long prior. So I felt like I at least had some base, and then I show up here and it wasn't so bad because Cusco, for whatever reason, it just hit me in a different way.
And your drinks probably go a lot further, right? Because you get that buzz real easy.
And the hangover's the worst, though. So it's
a real it gives and it takes.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple other questions about Quito, though. Of course, we're going to do some follow-up episodes, but I don't want to get too far in without talking about our great guest on today's episode, Ryan. Today, we're talking to, full disclosure, a friend of mine, but also an entrepreneur in the travel industry. His name is Kevin Ferguson, and he is. We're joining him mid-journey in starting a glamping business.
Glamping.
And so he's going to be on talking about this what it is to break into the travel industry. We're going to talk about the nature of glamping, which of course is glamorous camping. And he's going to give us a deep dive into Hot Springs National Park, one of the most odd national parks that we've got in the U.S.
I love hot springs. I haven't been to this national park. I just mean in general. Like
you like hot springs, lowercase h, lowercase h. I'm talking about a capital H, capital S, Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas.
And this is the one, is this the FDR, right?
Yes, there's an FDR connection where he used to take the waters as part of his recovery and dealing with polio. And it really put that treatment on the map for a lot of Americans suffering at that time. And, but this healing waters, this is a major theme. I mean, right now, healing waters, the living waters of Mandalore is a major plot point on The Mandalorian. It surrounds us. It's bigger than FDR, right?
I had no idea what you were talking about for a second.
Well, you gotta keep up with The Mandalorian.
Is my boy on that from Last of Us? Isn't he
your boy? Well, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
Well, he's on it. But one of the things about The Mandalorian is he's not supposed to take his mask off.
Oh my gosh!
So the secret truth is that you almost never see Pedro Pascal, and there's a lot of chat among the cast about how he's like never on set. It's always stuntmen in the costume, and he goes into a booth and just records his voice, and then of course he gets all the credit.
It's a real mistake to cast somebody who looks like Pedro Pascal and then put them in a mask.
I completely agree, but they make it. It's like this religious thing for his character that he can't take the helmet off. So last season they were having him do it, and the suggestion was that it was for Emmy consideration.
I see. Well, he's going to get his Emmy nom for The Last of Us.
But they did have, that's true. But they did have. Who's the guy from Breaking Bad? Gus Fring. What's that actor's name?
Oh, I love that character so much.
So he's terrific, and Giancarlo, that's his name.
Yeah,
and he was on an interview. He's a villain in The Mandalorian, and they said to him, so do you work much with Pedro Pascal? And he was like, Patron? No, we don't hold the set for Patron.
Pedro's a busy man these days, so
and a good-looking man. To your point,
he is a good-looking man.
And
I've
speaking
noticed.
of a good-looking man, our guest Kevin Ferguson is no small shake, Ryan.
This is a handsome podcast this week.
Well,
not counting us.
Yeah, you take us out of it. But Hot Spring is one of the national parks I have not been to, and I am purposely holding it off so that I can go glamp at his brand new glamping site.
I would love to glamp at the Hot Springs. That sounds fantastic.
I forget. Have you done any glamping experience?
I don't think I've done any camping experience at all. Gosh.
See, I used to camp all the time as a Boy Scout.
You were a Boy Scout, yeah.
And we were camping constantly, at least once a month. Yeah. Kevin also grew up as a Boy Scout, so he can talk a little bit about his camping experience. And I'm proud to say, I like to think that the genesis of his business came from a shared experience. You may go back to our old episode, which is the national parks in Utah, and Kevin and I took a road trip out in Utah and hit a bunch of the national parks together. And on that trip, we stayed a night at a company called Under Canvas, which is one of the kind of wider known glamping companies. And, they put you in like a big canvas tent that's up on a platform. You have a proper bed, you've got proper furniture, you've got a decent bathroom situation. So these are the sorts of things, like it's a nice, especially if you can't get a hotel or you're in a place that's remote enough that there's this kind of campsite available, but not a hotel. It's a great option and really good for families.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the interview because I also don't know much about this national park outside of the FDR biography I read.
Now, Ryan, I don't want to spoil too much of the upcoming Quito, Ecuador episodes, but speaking of when I was a Boy Scout, sometimes you're out there, they didn't pack up enough food, and you're just like putting your finger in the ground trying to get at some grubs or some worms. And from what I understand, you have recently had a fair to say, harrowing culinary experience.
So I went to this restaurant actually last night called Somos, which is a beautiful, very hip restaurant in Quito. And, I got the tasting menu, and it was it started off, pretty typical stuff. Some really lovely cheesy bread, some oysters, some shrimp, from the Amazon, all that good stuff. And then about halfway through the meal, my waitress comes and she sits down in front of me a worm. And, I think I definitely made sort of like a look. I was like, whoa, taken aback. And she said, I've seen that look before.
Yeah.
It was my first worm, and I'm not like a squeamish eater. I enjoy crickets. I've had snake, which is
you better enjoy crickets. I've heard most of your jokes.
Oh, that's good. That was pretty good.
Thank you.
But it was the taste of it was. It was kind of meaty. It was kind of squishy.
I think it would be much more a texture issue for me.
Yeah, it was more of in my mind like I'm eating a worm, and I had to kind of push that out.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I told my mom I'm not going to go seek out another worm today.
Sure. Was it well spiced?
Yeah, they gave you, they had the lemon. I covered it in the lemon that they gave me. I squeezed every bit of that lemon I possibly could. The thing that was even kind of weirder about it is it had its little, I don't know what you call the little shell outside of the worm, that it lives in. So the outside was crunchy because the outside is like a little worm.
Wait,
shell.
It had a shell? What kind of worm is this?
Not a shell. It's what is it called when a worm has the thing around it? Come on, this is not a biology podcast, but there's a worm
No, this isn't a worm biology podcast. You've outed us.
It would be less popular even. Can you imagine? No, but it was in a little shell because it's like it's a thing that it lives on the tree. It's a tree worm. And so the shell itself is crunchy.
Tree worm? Guys, what is Ryan talking about? I'm completely lost. We've gone from me picturing a worm to like, this sounds like some sort of beetle.
It looks more like a maggot. Kind of, because it's got like an
interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's making it more or less appetizing.
Yeah, so the outside shell is crunchy, and then inside you've got this squishy thing, and it's a worm. And so I ate it quickly.
And the cooking process doesn't firm it up at all.
No. And they don't do anything to make it present not like a worm. Like the whole, that's what it is. And But insects, we need to get more into eating insects.
You're right, but I also think even among insects, worm eating is like a subset that I think I would struggle with it, mostly as a texture issue. So I'm glad you could report it. I also think it's like a tasting menu is a good context in which to try
a worm.
Because exactly. Because like then you don't have to commit to an entree, and you could almost like be doing it for the Instagram value and that kind of stuff. And it seems to me like you embraced it as, this is like a local cuisine. I'm going to try it as part of this broader array.
Yeah. No, it was fine. That's I very much enjoyed the restaurant. You felt the pressure to eat the worm though, because like if you don't, you'd be humiliated.
You gotta do it.
So that's we'll unpack more of that experience in a future episode, because Quito's been really interesting, a lot of cool stuff here, and certainly a lot to talk about.
Fantastic. Well, with that, Ryan, I think it's time that we get to my conversation with Kevin Ferguson about Hot Springs National Park.
Tell the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right. So I'm joined here in the palatial out of office studio by a luminary. He's a friend. He's a hero. He's an enigma, and he's an entrepreneur. His name is Kevin Ferguson. Kevin, can you say hello to the people?
Hello. Excited to be here. Excited to talk to your audience.
Thank you so much for joining. And Kevin is, as I mentioned, a travel industry entrepreneur. He and I were friends in grad school, and I've been following his ascent. And now he's founded his own company. It's called Starlight Haven. And Kevin, am I right in describing it as a glamping site? Is it a glamping company, or do you not like that term?
Yeah, no. So if you talk to folks in the industry, glamping is a bit of a lightning rod sort of term. We prefer outdoor hospitality. Some folks like outdoor accommodations, but certainly the colloquial term is certainly glamping.
Now, tell me what is the source of the controversy of the term glamping?
It just feels very trendy, glamorous camping. It can sort of rub people sort of the wrong way, depending on what side of the aisle they fall on, I guess I'd say. But we are a part of the American Glamping Association, so the big association, for the industry calls itself glamping. So.
Oh, well, then you're going to be stuck with it.
You're going to be stuck with it. But yeah, you'll normally hear folks in the industry, especially larger operators who are operating multi-unit facilities, they likely refer to themselves as an outdoor hospitality company.
All right. So give me a bit of the history and what the pitch for Starlight Haven specifically is, and where you're setting up camp.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're relatively new, which glamping is, I guess, relatively new in the U.S. It's been around in Asia and Europe for a while, but it's sort of caught fire. It's been a recent phenomenon here in the U.S. We're about 2 years old, and we like to describe ourselves as an outdoor hospitality company, and we provide unique accommodations with resort-style amenities nestled in nature. So what does that really mean? If you come to Starlight Haven, you'll find yourself in a treehouse, in a tent, in a geodesic dome, in a custom A-frame cabin. But the important thing is you'll have a kitchenette, an in-suite bathroom. It'll be heated and cooled. You'll have a queen size or a king size bed. So you can really enjoy nature and comfort.
And geographically, where are you setting up?
Primarily in the South. So we have a facility and a location being built in Alabama, in the Weiss Lake region of Alabama near Little River Canyon, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's the deepest canyon or one of the deepest canyons east of the Mississippi. And then we're also in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and our facility is about 8 minutes from Hot Springs National Park.
Which I want to dig into. It's one of the national parks I haven't been into, but
That's such a shame. Such a shame.
Well, once the site's up and running, I'm obviously going to come stay in a geodesic dome.
Okay, we'd love to have you.
It's an exhibitionist dream. I've stayed in a geodesic dome, I'm happy to say, in Peru. And I like the dome living. Though I think out of your options, I think the A-frame holds the biggest appeal for me personally.
Yeah, and it's a custom A-frame. We work with the local architect to design something custom, nothing off the shelf. So we're really excited about it. A lot of glass, a lot of natural light. We're really excited about that one as well.
And what was it about this industry that attracted you when you were thinking of starting a business? I think it's notable. You and I have glamped together.
We have.
And in fact, I think it was both of our first major glamping experiences with one of the bigger operators, which is Under Canvas.
That's right.
And we were in Utah, in Moab, Utah, going to Arches National Park. So would you say here on air that I, Kiernan Schmidt, I'm also sort of a founder?
Exactly. You're a founder without any equity or any membership interest.
You got to my next question.
You get a thank you.
Joking aside, what was it about this business opportunity that made this feel, I know sort of your job history, you could have gone in lots of different directions. And so what was it here that felt like the right opportunity?
I really have a ton of different interests, just like you, but I found this business to be at the intersection of real estate, hospitality, and the great outdoors, all of which I have an interest for and in. And I think one of the things that sort of folks like you and I who spent just a ton of time in the outdoors, grown up in the outdoors, love being in nature. One thing that we often forget is if you didn't grow up sort of in the outdoors, there's a lot of barriers to the outside, and the outdoors can be quite intimidating. And so I sort of view this business also as a gateway to introduce a multitude of people who otherwise wouldn't spend a lot of time outside. It's sort of a gateway to the outdoors.
I like that a lot. I think it's also, it's one of the reasons on the pod we talk a lot about state parks. So we cover national parks. I'm passionate about national parks, but the state park system is like one of the great hidden treasures of the United States. And there's an episode way back in the archives, a journalist named Peter Kujawinski, and he wrote, it was supposed to be a 5 to 10 article series for the New York Times about the hidden wonders of the state parks. And they cut it down to one really long article. So I had him on and he was just going on and on. He had traveled to hundreds and hundreds of these spots that I had never heard of. And it definitely feels to me like a big untapped opportunity. There aren't many of these facilities that are like a step up. You don't have to backpack in your own camping equipment. You could show up and have those amenities for those who might be new to the outdoors, like you're saying.
No, absolutely. We actually toured when we were looking at different locations. We toured several state parks. And I think one of the innovations that I'm really excited about for the state park systems across the country, you're actually starting to see state parks adopt glamping. So they're bringing glamping to the state park systems, which again, is just another sort of alternative accommodation style to get more people interested in the outdoors and to get more folks to come visit the state parks. Because I definitely agree there's some of the hidden gems in our country.
So what is the current state of the construction on your lot? And tell us, how did you get from the idea to picking this site to actually sitting down with an architect and figuring out what each of the different residences is going to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're sort of a mixed bag. So we actually have operations going on and we're under development. And so our facility in Hot Springs is an existing operation. We actually bought it. We acquired it from an elderly couple who were looking to retire and and sort of go hit the road is how they described it. And so we bought a treehouse property.
Okay.
And we're in the process of expanding it in Hot Springs. And so when we bought it, it had 6 tree houses on it and sort of a cottage cabin at the base of the property. And we're tripling the size of the site. So we're adding 15 units. So we're going to have 15 units. We're adding a communal clubhouse to the area as well. And then obviously we're doing some mixing of the accommodation types. As I alluded to, when we purchased the property, it was just tree houses. And we'll be bringing in geodesic domes and safari style tents. And we also have a development project going on in Alabama as well, near Weiss Lake. So we're actually on Weiss Lake. We have about 1,500 feet of lake frontage for that property. But it's a ground up development. So,
okay.
So it's exciting times.
And I have no sense of where do you even begin marketing a brand for Starlight? You know, is it obviously coming out, talking to podcasts like this, but do you get listed on the Hot Springs National Park website for lodging options? Are you out on Airbnb? What are the best ways to both be discovered for listeners who might actually be looking for you, and for you to really build and get more sites and build some traction around the brand?
Yes, all of those things, to be quite honest, Kiernan. So we're listed on Visit Hot Springs, the city of Hot Springs, their marketing website. We're listed under their lodging options. We're also listed on Arkansas.com. So the state of Arkansas's tourism page, we're listed there. And then it's sort of a lot of the usual suspects. We have a direct booking channel. You can go to our website at visitstarlight.com and book an accommodation. And we're also listed on sort of your usual suspects, the online travel agencies. So think Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Expedia, etc. We also work with travel influencers as well. So we work with folks.
Obviously, you're on the phone with me here. I mean, you know.
So we work with folks out of Dallas. We have a lot of visitors from sort of the Dallas, Texas area, Little Rock area, and then the Louisiana area as well. So we work with influencers too.
So it sounds like you have a strategic focus on growing out specifically in the South. Is that right?
That's right. And primarily because when you think about the South, as a glamping operator or outdoor hospitality operator, you can have a 12-month season. Yeah. And so if you look at a lot of the operators in the Northeast or even some of the folks out West, right, they have 6-8-month seasons. And so, the South and the 12-month season is just good for business.
And so do you have any sites that you're quietly in your mind, your dream sites that you want to build in next? Absolutely.
I'll give a teaser: somewhere in Texas.
Well, that really narrows it down, Kevin. Thanks so much. Breaking news, everybody.
Somewhere in Texas.
That's interesting, though. I wasn't sure whether your inclination would be to have the sites, within drivable distance from each other. Just as an operator, when you're developing out your second, your third, is it going to be hard to have such spread between them?
No, so similar to you, I have a partner. Ron's not here, my partner's not here, but we both work with somebody who.
Are you referring to Ryan Davis? That guy's not my partner. He's not here,
But I have a business partner who's actually based in Texas.
Got it.
So, the Hot Springs is actually the nice halfway point for us. We'll have a site in Alabama, we'll have one in Arkansas, and then we'll have one in Texas.
I see. Now let's talk Hot Springs. So Hot Springs, as I understand it, it's one of the odder national parks because it really preserves this like an actual spa, right? Like a historic spa.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have Bathhouse Row, which are non-historic bathhouses. And another couple of cool facts about Hot Springs National Park, it's actually the smallest national park in the U.S. There's about 26 miles of hiking in the park. Also, something that I know you'd appreciate is if you're ever playing trivia, what is the oldest national park? What would you say to that question?
Gosh, I would have guessed something like Shenandoah.
Most folks say Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah,
Yellowstone,
okay. Oh, right,
was
sure.
Yeah, it was the first one, I guess, with the distinction of national park. But President Andrew Jackson in 1832 actually made Hot Springs, what's today Hot Springs National Park. He made a Hot Springs reservation. And so we're talking some 40 years before Yellowstone became a national park. Hot Springs was it was technically a national park, but again, it was called Hot Springs Reservation.
And if Andrew Jackson liked it, it must have been quite the boozy place.
I'm not going to say anything bad about Andrew Jackson, but I'm sure we share similar thoughts about the president.
Besides Hot Springs National Parks, which has the hiking, you got the bathhouse culture. What are other great attractions to this first site that folks can book right now?
Absolutely. So DeGray State Park, so DeGray Lake State Park is another thing that we market as well as an attraction. Speaking of state parks in the earlier part of the conversation, it's really a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful state park. And it's only about 30 minutes away from our site. Actually, the city of Hot Springs, sort of downtown Hot Springs, is a historic place. So for folks who don't know about the history of the city, famous baseball players, gangsters like Al Capone, they used to actually visit Hot Springs and take advantage of the thermal baths, and it also served as a slower pace than sort of the New York or Chicago lifestyle. There's actually restaurants that Al Capone used to visit that still have bullet holes in them.
Wow.
like the Ohio Club. Yeah. So, so there's some local museums as well that are really great. There's some crystal mining. And this region in general is called the Diamond Lakes region because of all the lakes nearby the area. And so it's really just a phenomenal place for an outdoorsy. Sort of a hidden gem, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great choice. I definitely feel enticed. And Kevin, I think you are the first guest to come on to suggest, to give to the listeners, to give unto yourself. This is almost more of last stop territory, the people segment. You're going to give a special break to folks who might want to book with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to anybody in the out of office audience and community. Okay, my bad. Community. Anybody in the community. If you'd like to come check out Starlight Haven, we'll offer you 10% off with the coupon code or discount code 00023.
Like, ooh, 23. Beautiful.
Yeah,
I love it. I hope you're going to have to expand. You're going to have so many of the out of office folks. We don't have a name for our fans, but we should. And I hope that they all come and book with you and eventually end up at your secret Texas site that I hope you'll come back on and announce here.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And you can find us again at www.visitstarlight.com. Maybe you can put it in the show notes. But
absolutely. Yeah. Along with Kevin Ferguson's LinkedIn. He's a good looking man, a kind man. Thank you very much for coming on. It was great to catch up.
No, thanks for having me.
All right. And now it's time, as you know, as a loyal listener, what's it time for, Kevin? The last stop. You don't know. You don't listen. The last stop.
I do. The last.
He doesn't
stop.
Listen, people.
Buckle up. The last stop.
We don't say buckle up.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan. Well, we're here in the last stop. This is the last segment of the show, the final segment of the show. It's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known as the people segment. And that's because it probably is the most democratic part of our show. Of course, we don't like to bring our democratic politics into the show. We've been told to stop it by every reviewer that Apple has on us. It turns out large conservative listenership, which we welcome. We welcome your reviews. And we welcome an open and cheery dialogue where we can focus on travel, and especially you are welcome here at the last stop. And it's a place for those new listeners where Ryan and I share a piece of ourselves. And isn't that how we're all going to come together in the current political moment anyway, Ryan? And you and I, we each bring one thing. It could be anything. It could be a memory. It could be a tale. It could be a yarn. It could be a souvenir. It could be anything. It could be a prayer. It's never been a prayer, but I like that idea a lot. We could do St. Christopher.
You would bring that, not me.
I for a future one, and you'd probably just try to glom onto it. But it does have to meet one criterion, which is it has to inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workday week, Ryan. So I'm going to ask you, as I ask you every week, Ryan, do you have a last stop this week?
I do, Kiernan. I get a cool email from a company called Charter, and basically they send these emails out that have sort of interesting data points about what's happening in the world, from business to television to culture to, really about everything. And this week's was about the number of passports that have been issued recently in the U.S. And 2022 was actually the peak in history of the most passports ever issued at 22 million. And they're getting 500,000 passport applications every week right now.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
isn't that wild? And
I mean, that's just the post-pandemic floodgates,
Yeah, and it is the wait now is between 10 and 13 weeks.
Lordy,
to get your passport. So if folks,
as a person who waits to the last minute on everything, that must really scare you.
Well, you remember my whole story. I had to go to Connecticut. And
I do remember.
Yeah. So
because you booked a flight without the passport.
Well, that was the only way you could do it at the time, because they weren't issuing regular passports. You had to say, I have to go to Mexico City.
There are so many attractive young men there. That was your compelling reason on the application.
No comment, Mom. But look. So it's exciting because people are traveling, people are getting their passports, but be aware that it's going to take extra long. If you need to get that passport renewed, just go ahead and get started now. 50% of Americans, according to a recent poll, plan to travel more in 2023 than they did in 2022. And so I think we're seeing people get out back into the world again, and it's exciting.
That's very, very encouraging. I think my passport will be due for a refresh in the next couple of years. So I do hope that pace picks up a tiny bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, did you bring a last stop this week, Kiernan?
I did, of course. And actually, this is a somewhat rare sort of last stop, but I'm going to take a memory. I'm going to bring a memory out. And I hope that this is something that sparks creativity in folks when they're planning their warm weather plans now that we're heading into spring. The memory is just all that Boy Scout talk, put it in my head. When I was a Boy Scout, the best camping trip that we used to do was in November. We would do it the weekend before Thanksgiving. And the troop would go, we would book a spot at a Boy Scout camp, like a summer camp that would open up the campsites for off-summer booking and camping outings. And what we would do is we would have a theme to it, that it was a potluck Thanksgiving feast, but everything was cooked completely out in the open with real fires on the campsite. And so it was like a culinary camping trip where for the weeks leading up, we would plan out the menu, we would find recipes, the troop would get together in the week before and we'd go shopping for everything. And then we would pack in coolers full of stuff, and each individual Boy Scout was responsible for each of these, for ingredients, or you were owning the preparation of something. And then the whole Saturday of the trip was all food preparation. And then the Saturday night was like this great bacchanalia where we would just have this amazing feast made on the campfires. And it's such a warm memory for me. And of course, late November, it's like cold out. And there was something about just this bonding activity and making some really great food together that still today, it's such a wonderful memory for me. And I love this idea of a food-themed camping trip. If anybody's looking how to fill a weekend.
Yeah, that does sound nice. I have a memory of the only summer camp I ever went to, a 4-H summer camp, and sitting by the fire and cooking s'mores, and I don't even like s'mores that much, but when you're sitting by a fire, it's, it's a great experience. So
yeah, there's something about the fire. The thing I that was most memorable to cook was that you would do these Dutch oven meals, and Dutch ovens are these like incredibly heavy pots that you bring, and you pack them with food, and then you can literally put them right next to the fire, right in the coals of the fire. And they can cook. They can sit there for hours and hours and cook the food. And that was a real favorite way to prepare like entrees. Camping cooking is like a really specific skill set because you can't do anything too complicated, but it was fun because we would do really complicated stuff on this particular weekend. And I remember the first task when we hit the campsite was always you had to go out and get a whole bunch of sticks that were the right width and length. And we would lash together with twine a whole bunch of tables out of these sticks, which were our work surfaces for cooking. I mean, it was really a very incredible and creative experience.
Wow, that is very cool.
And, this is Troop 5 in Wallingford, Connecticut. I can remember the leaders so well, particularly Mr. Whitehead, Mr. Thibodeau, Mr. Holloway. These were typically they were dads who were part of it. My dad would pitch in from time to time. And it was a great experience, and they were all volunteering that time. And I remember they would sneak off and go get Dunkin' Donuts in the local town, and they wouldn't bring anything back for the Boy Scouts. So
probably pick up some whiskey or something too.
Yeah, I would like to think that they were drinking a little bit on that. I'm not sure. Well, if I end up doing it for Charlie, I'm definitely going to be bringing my camp flask.
Camp flask, I love it.
Well, Ryan, what are we talking about next week?
So while it's fresh in my mind, I would love to tell folks about the 10 days that I spent here in Quito, Ecuador, and everything I saw and ate and experienced. It's been an interesting time. So I think we'll talk about Quito on the next episode.
Well, I just asked that you come back with whatever the correct definition of this worm was. I'm really curious about what that worm was, because it doesn't sound like a worm.
It looks like a worm. I'm going to post it on the Instagram this week because I think folks are going to want to see it.
Well, until then,
I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken?
It had more girth than length, which, it's never that pleasant.
So something tells me it's not the first time you've experienced that.